Just adjusting the camera a little bit there. Alrighty. We got our microphone ready to go. And we are live. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to a bonus episode of Tarot Tales. My name is Heather from Shadow and Shine, and my co-host, Kelsey of Soul Light Affirmations, she is not with us today. She is doing some celebrating and living her life to the fullest, taking care of some personal stuff. But I'm here hanging out with you guys. And I definitely have quite the episode lined up for you today as we dive in. Today's episode is not going to be what I was originally planning whatsoever, ironically enough as it is. Originally, I had planned to make today an episode for beginner astrology. I was going to walk you guys through some very simple, very basic ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of things when it comes to astrology. But I've had a really interesting week, needless to say, and I want to talk about it. It actually inspired the topic that I want to talk about today, which is kind of connected to Mother's Day. There's a lot of different areas when it comes to this topic today. But yes, it involves Mother's Day and nurturing ourselves. It involves feeling safe and sound. All that is going to be coming up, though. As usual, we're going to dive into the things that we normally do dive into around here on Tarot Tales, which is our weekly collective card pull, number 1, so we can tap into the energy of the upcoming week and see what we need to know, see what's going on. And then after that, I'm going to dive into our astrological weather basically with you guys and see what's coming up in terms of the transits and what's happening in astrology. So that's what's happening. And speaking of weather, it's been really weird weather here where I'm at in Denver. Um, I'm calling it Maytember. Basically, it's Maytember because it was snowing. It started snowing yesterday in May for Cinco de Mayo. So that's how we are kicking off May here in Colorado is with snow. But it seems to calm down now. Tomorrow it's going to be like in the 60s. So in typical Denver fashion, it's all going to be melted. Hello there in the chat. I see you there. Welcome everybody. Anyways, enough about the weather, right? Let me see. I'm actually going to look at my computer just because the phone is like all the way on the other side of my desk and it's hard to see what's actually being said in the chat, but I'll check in really quick and then we're going to do a card pull. Yes. Well, I'm doing a lot of things here. I'm actually going to do a collective card pull right now is what I'm going to do. So welcome you guys. Stick around because right now I'm going to do a collective card pull and we're going to tap into the energy of the upcoming week. So this is for all of us here. For all of us, any of us who are here, this is also being recorded live for Tarot Tales. And this is not just doing readings. This is a full-blown podcast. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff here for everyone that is on YouTube. This entire broadcast goes live to Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all of your streaming platforms on Fridays. So you can see, or you not see, hear the audio version, I guess you could say. Now, as for our collective card pull, since we're getting into our collective card pull now here for the week ahead, we have new love coming through. I love that. We love the love. We love some new love coming in. So that is very, very exciting. Let's get a little bit more context though. See what we can expect with that. Is this going to be new love romantically? Is it going to be new love in terms of like love for ourselves? Is it going to be platonic love coming in? So this kind of love could look like a lot of different things. So let's get a little bit more context. Besides new love, what do we need to know about this new love coming in this coming week? Ooh, we have a crystal suggestion. I love this. I love when the crystal suggestion cards come through. I'll show it to you guys really quick, but then I'm going to read what's on the card because there's a lot of information that we have here. So we have Moonstone coming in. And whenever I get a crystal suggestion card come through, I almost kinda see it as, like it's like a prescription, basically. It's like a little spiritual prescription where spirit is like, "You need a little bit more of this energy to carry forward in the upcoming week ahead." So, this is the energy we need to tap into. So, if you have Moonstone at home, make sure you're wearing it, or maybe you have it propped up nicely on a desk or a dresser or something like that at your home or at work. But definitely some moonstone is going to come in handy. If you don't have any moonstone, check out your local metaphysical shop. I guarantee someone is going to have it. So let's see what we need to know about moonstone. Moonstone is connected to the third eye and crown chakras. It's also connected to the element of the wind. It brings about positive changes. It helps you tap into your intuition. It'll bring about more optimism and it'll assist you in self discovery. I love that. That's beautiful, beautiful energy, you guys. So I feel like when we put these two cards together, New Love with Moonstone together, I feel like if you're having Moonstone on you and maybe you're trying to attract in more love in your life, it could be romantically, it could be just like a love for yourself, it could be feeling love just from your community around you, your friends, your family, the people who are in your life. If you're seeking more of that love, Moonstone may be able to help you tap into that energy for this upcoming week. Let's see if there's anything else we need to know for the week ahead. All right. And after I'm done pulling cards here for the collective, we're going to get into our astrology forecast for the upcoming week ahead. All right. So the next card we got is Stuck Amongst the Thorns. So I feel like, if anything, I feel like this card is more so representing the current energy that you may be feeling this literally in this moment. And I think it's kind of funny because, yeah, like on this card, I feel like it's basically just like implying that you may be stuck when it comes to love, feeling love, receiving love, maybe finding a right partner, connecting in terms of romantic love. So I feel like this is where we've been. So there's an opportunity this upcoming week to kind of knock this out of the way, to no longer be feeling this stuck energy anymore. And again, that moonstone is really going to help with that, as well as all of the different properties that it brings, all the energy that it brings. Anything else we need to know here for the upcoming week ahead? All right. Migrate a new direction. We have migrate a new direction. So I do feel like there is an opportunity to flip the switch, basically. So again, if you have been feeling stuck, there's an opportunity where the energy is going to move. There's going to be like this breakthrough moment. It may not be super noticeable, but it's going to be there. So definitely kind of take that in mind. But yeah, there's an opportunity to migrate a new direction. Let's get one more card to kind of wrap things up here for the upcoming week ahead. And then we're going to dive into our astrology for the upcoming week. So exciting. What do we need to know for the week ahead energetically as we're heading into Mother's Day? And we're going to be talking about, okay, we got oh, that's like 3. I'm going to put these 3 back. It's like it's too many. I'm like, if it was 2, I'd be like, okay, let's take it, but I'm like, no. No, just one, please. There we go. There we go. Ask and you shall receive, right? Okay. Keeping promises. Oh, I love that. So I feel like this is about not just promises, but I feel like it's like the dreams and the desires in your heart. Like the promises that you've made to yourself in your heart, basically. That if you made a promise to yourself to find a healthy love, good connections, just like healthy love in general, not just romantically, but with your family, with your friends, in your community. If you made a promise to yourself to have this, you are going to be keeping that promise. I feel like it hasn't been an easy road. There's been a lot of bumps along the way. Like, obviously, as you can see here on this card, like, the only way you can create a rainbow is to have that mixture of sun and rain, right? So it's like there has to be some of that gray, dark sky. There has to be some rain. There has to be a little bit of a storm. And I feel like you've been living that and you've experienced that already. That's probably where some of that stuck energy comes from when it comes to relationships, when it comes to love. But like I said, there's this opportunity coming up this week to change it up and tapping into this energy. Even if you don't use Moonstone, definitely take note of the properties that Moonstone has within it, this type of energy, this type of frequency, because that's what's ultimately going to help mix things up and move things in the directions you want to keep that promise to yourself that I feel like you made to yourself way, way long ago to find the love that you are looking for. And it starts within. So, anyways, yeah, that's our collective card pull for the week ahead, which is a lovely message. I feel like that's very uplifting and inspiring. If you are just tuning in, if you are just joining us here, my name is Heather. And my co host, Kelsey, she's usually hanging out here with me today, but she is taking some personal time. So it's just me and you guys for today. This is Tarot Tales once again, and we are a weekly podcast. We go live, we do this thing here on YouTube, and then it goes up everywhere else to all the podcast streaming platforms everywhere on Fridays. So, yeah, we always kick things off with an energetic card pull like we just did. And now I'm going to head into our astrology reading so we can know the upcoming astrological weather, the forecast, I guess you could say, what we can expect with that. So, let me bring over my computer because that's where all of my notes are for that. And let us see what we need to know with the astrology. Let me bring up my notes. I know they're in here. Okay. So, first of all, starting today, right here, right now, May 6th, I did talk about this briefly in last week's episode. So, if you missed last week's episode, if you're here on YouTube, you can always go and check out that video. If you're listening on any of the streaming platforms, check out the most recent episode before this one. And on May 6th, today, Pluto is going retrograde in Aquarius. It begins today. So I got into more details with that last week, once again. So if you're interested in that, check that out because we're going to move forward onto the next things that we need to know, starting with May 10th. May 10th, the sun in Taurus will be sextile Jupiter in Cancer. Okay. So, what does this mean exactly? What does this mean for the collective? Let's get into it. This brings a gentle, supportive growth through comfort, stability, and emotional security. This is a beautiful transit for grounding into what feels safe, nourishing, and aligned, while allowing abundance to grow naturally. For the collective, this can feel like a reminder that expansion does not always have to be dramatic or forced. Sometimes the best opportunities come through peace, patience, home, family, creativity, or simply choosing what supports your heart and your nervous system. which is very true. So it's a very tender energy. You got to remember Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's currently in Cancer right now. Cancer, it is an emotional sign. It's a very nurturing sign. Um, so yeah, it's in Cancer right now, and the Sun is in Taurus. Taurus, they can be very stubborn, obviously, a very stubborn energy, but they like their luxuries too. They're creatures of habits. Um, they like the nice things, but they like stability. They like security. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's a very good energy. All right, May 13th. That's the next date we have coming up here for our astrology for the upcoming week. We have Mercury in Taurus. We got a lot of things going on now in Taurus. Sextile Jupiter in Cancer. So now we're talking about Mercury, not the sun, but Mercury. Mercury is how we communicate, and it's also the way we think. So overall, this is good news and fortunate outcomes. Who here needs a little bit of good news? Who needs some good news in their life? I know I do. If you need some good news, drop a heart emoji, any color. Drop a heart emoji in the comments, any color you want. But if you need some good news, drop that in the chat because I know I definitely need it. So let's hope May 13th brings that for all of us, right? Collectively. Okay, so this transit brings supportive conversations, grounded wisdom, and emotionally intelligent decision making. This is a beautiful transit for speaking from the heart while staying practical and realistic. That's the Taurus side. For the collective, this can help us communicate our needs more clearly, make thoughtful plans, and receive helpful guidance through family, intuition, memories, or trusted support systems. It's a say what you mean, but say it with care kind of energy. So, yes, we love that. Which is very different from like when Mercury is in Aries, for example, which we already experienced that. We already had that. Mercury in Aries, it's very brash, it's very bold. It doesn't hold back. There's very little tact. It's kind of like listening to Simon Cowell when he was on American Idol or something. Um, but yeah, definitely. This has tact though. There's care. There's a little bit of finesse there. There's some TLC, some love behind it. So we love that. All right, moving on to another one for May 13th. I was about ready to dive into the next date after that, but we have two transits happening on May 13th. That was the first one. The second one is the moon in Aries is going to be conjunct both Neptune and Saturn in Aries because Neptune and Saturn, they have been kind of just like sitting there, like shaking each other's hands basically for a while. They're sitting like right on top of each other, basically on a bench, is the best way I can describe it. And now the moon is going to meet up and hang out with them as well. So this overall energy is about downloads and spiritual guidance. This energy can bring a mix of emotional urgency, sensitivity, and reality checks. The moon in Aries wants to act fast. Neptune can blur the emotional picture, and Saturn asks us how to slow down and take responsibility for our reactions. For the collective, this may feel like wanting to charge ahead before everything is fully clear. So the invitation is to pause, breathe, and to make sure our actions are guided by intuition and maturity, not by impulse, fear, or confusion. So, good things to know, good things to have a heads up about on May 13th. And then finally, our last transit that we're going to talk about is May 14th for the upcoming week. And it's funny, you guys, because when I was looking at the astrology for the upcoming week, I feel like nonstop for weeks, months, It's just like it's been flooded with transit after transit after transit. Whenever I was like going through the astrology, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have like 800 million transits to talk about. Um, so believe it or not, this is actually on the lighter side this week, which may kind of be a pleasant surprise. So we're gonna roll with that. That's okay. That's totally fine with us. Um, anyways, May 14th. That's our last one coming up for the upcoming week ahead. So this is the Sun in Taurus being conjunct Mercury in Taurus. So once again, when something is conjunct, it's kind of like they're meeting up with each other in a sense. They're right on top of each other. They're sitting on top of each other on a bench basically. So that Sun and Mercury in Taurus. The Sun again is it's our energy levels. That's the energy levels of the time. Mercury, it's how we think, it's how we speak. So once again, what does that mean for the collective when that's happening? That is brilliant ideas aligning with destiny. We love that. So, this transit brings clear focus to practical matters, values, money, stability, and long term decisions. This is a grounded energy for thinking things through, speaking plainly, and getting real about what feels worth our time and energy. For the collective, this can help us simply simplify the noise, trust common sense, and make choices that support peace, security, and tangible process. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Taurus, once again, Taurus is a creature of habit. It likes its security, it likes its stability. So, that does very much so deal in issues with values and money. Taurus is ruled by Venus. And yes, Venus is the planet of love, and Taurus does love the love. Don't get me wrong, Libra does too. They're both ruled by Venus. But Taurus, especially, that's the earth sign. So that's the more like very grounded sign. So that's the sign that really craves that stability, where uh Libra's a little bit more heavy on the like justice side, I guess you could say, of Venus, the idea kind of part of it, because it is an air sign. So I would know. I am a Libra. I'm a Libra sun. I'm a Libra moon. I got a lot of Libra happening over here. Um, but yes, that is what's happening on May 14th. So honestly, not too bad. Not too bad with the upcoming transits this week. I would say, if anything, the biggest of the big one is probably happening literally today, which is that Pluto retrograde beginning. But that's going to be going on for several months where Pluto is going to be retrograde. I don't think it, I can't remember the exact date. I know I went over it last week. So once again, like I said, go back to last week's episode if you want to know all about that one specifically. But I believe, I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this. I believe Pluto will go direct again in like October or something. I want to say it's the fall. So either way, it's going to be retrograde for a while. I would say like, maybe 6 months, maybe a little bit less than that. But yeah, that's what's happening. And Pluto is always doing a wallop. Um, me and Pluto, we have wrestled it out several times in my lifetime. Um, I was born with my Pluto and my moon conjunct, and that's not a fun natal placement to have. Because Pluto is transformation, it's forced evolution, and your moon sign is your emotions. So, needless to say, my emotions have had quite a work through majority of my life. Different story, different day though. Anyway, so that is our astrology forecast for the day. Now, for those of you who are new here and are not really familiar with the Tarot Tales setup, This is a bonus episode. This is not one of our normal seasonal episodes. We're technically between seasons right now. We're between seasons 1 and 2 because I normally do not host this show by myself. I'm usually here with my co-host, Kelsey, who is taking some vacation time right now. But I'm here to hang out with you guys with these bonus episodes. So, under normal circumstances, we would do the collective card pull, which I did at the start of this. We would do our astrology reading that I just finished up, and then we would get into a cosmic check-in with you guys, which is normally like a fun little question thing we kind of dish out there to you. And then we jump into our spiritual topic of the day. So, originally, when I was planning today's episode, I know that there have been several requests for astrology, like learning astrology, beginner astrology, and I definitely want to do that with you guys. And that was originally the plan for today's show. I was going to do like a little astrology walkthrough to teach you guys some stuff. But I had a really crazy, weird week. And there's a way that I can tie that in when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to astrology, when it comes to even Mother's Day, which is coming up. I can tie it into a lot of things. And I kind of want to share what happened this past week with you guys here. And as for the astrology, if you are interested in learning about astrology, I do plan on still doing that beginner's astrology episode. I've just decided to bump that until next week. So that is the plan. If you want to learn about astrology, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when I'm going live, and then you can hang out and learn some astrology for yourself. But that's going to be next week. Same time and everything, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm actually in Mountain Time, so that's 3 p.m. for me. But either way, yeah, it's going to be the same bat time, same bat channel next week. Now, as for today, what am I substituting this with? Well, I'm going to get into that. I like to call today's episode When Home Doesn't Feel Safe, Mothering Ourselves Through the Mess. That's where we kind of get into Mother's Day. It's also where we get into healing. And it's kind of where I get into basically the whole thing of what I'm going to share with you guys today. So, this is going to be an interesting episode, you guys. I'm going to get real and I'm going to get personal about some things that I have been through in this episode. Not just this past week, but things that I even went through like 10 years ago, because those things that happened to me 10 years ago is very much so impacting some stuff that I have experienced just this past week. We're talking about like anxiety, stress, PTSD, depression, all of those kinds of things. But it all really starts 10 years ago, even though that specific situation is not what's happening right now. It's a trigger. It's a trigger, you know? So I definitely want to share about that. And I'm sorry if you hear my dog growling in the background. You may not because of the microphone, but I can hear him. So I don't know what he thinks he sees. Oh, are you looking at the snow? I think that's what he's doing. Oh no. Now we're barking for sure. Shadow, relax. Relax, buddy. Yeah, it was snowing here yesterday in May. So there's like pieces of snow falling down from like the rooftops and the trees and everything out there. So I think he's looking at stuff there. Shadow, quiet. Honey. Mama's trying to speak to people here on YouTube and record this podcast for everyone on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, all the other places, which will be up on Friday. Okay. Anyways, so I'm kind of calling this segment the message of the day kind of segment. So, first of all, I want to share with you guys a blog post that I wrote a long time ago about exactly what it was that I went through. So, if you find it boring, I won't be offended if you scroll away and you're like, "I don't wanna hear this blog post." You don't have to. There's no pressure. Um, but I do invite you to stay if you're interested in hearing the story, and, hopefully you do. So, anyways, this blog post, I'm gonna it's kinda long, so just hang in there with me, but it's a big story and has a lot to do with things that happened this week. So this blog post, buckle up, you guys. I'm already feeling the anxiety just looking at the title of it. It is called "How I Survived Bedbug Hell and Lived to Tell About It." So we're gonna dive in. I'm gonna read it. So, get cozy, get comfy, maybe grab a snack, get your favorite drink. I'll try to maybe read it in a calm, soothing voice if you want for like a little, I don't know, relaxation thing. But I'm gonna read this anyways. Um, okay. So the following blog post is one of the original pieces I wrote on the previous version of Shadow and Shine, which is my website, shadowandshine.com, by the way. Um, and once upon a time, it used to live on WordPress. As you may or may not know, I have been republishing several blog posts that got lost in the domain transfer over to Wix because now my website's on Wix. This post is one of those posts. So sit back and let's get into it. All right. So I wrote this in 2020. So just so you know, but the story itself happened years before that. It's 2020 and we're here in the middle of a pandemic right now. Riots and protests have been at the forefront of the news. Murder hornets. Oh gosh, you guys remember the murder hornets? Came and went. And the political arena has been a hot mess of a circus. To say 2020 has taken us straight into the twilight zone would be an understatement. For many people, this year has been a nightmare with health problems from COVID-19 to job loss, financial struggle, and more. This year has not been a dream for me either, but even at this point, as I write this blog post here, there's still a year that beats out 2020 for being the worst, at least for me personally, and that would be 2016. 2016 was the year I was severely depressed for months, homeless for a period of time, and nearly took my own life. Why? Two words: bed bugs. It's been 4 years since I climbed out of the pit of despair, and a lot has changed in my life since then. Mind you, I wrote this in 2020. So that was 4 years ago then. That's actually 10 years ago now. 2016, 2026. There you go. This story has always been a story I've wanted to share on my blog, and now here with you guys. Where was I? I just lost my place. And now Shadow is back to barking again. Okay, there we go. I found my place again. Not only to share what I have been through, but in hopes to help others who may be going through this hellish journey of eradicating these teeny tiny bloodsuckers themselves. It can be lonely, isolating, terrifying, and I hope that it helps someone who comes across this to develop the tools and skills to defeat this problem, to know that they are not alone and that they will get past this disastrous season of their lives. And I'm sorry if Shadow keeps barking, but he just won't stop. And that's also one of the reasons why I am reading this here and now for you guys, because this isn't just like me sharing a piece of my life and something that I've been through, but I also hope that even if it's just one person, if it helps one person who is struggling right now with something, even if it's not specifically this, but if they're able to connect with it in some way, that it helps them through whatever it is that they're struggling, that's just another reason I want to share this, because Being vulnerable, being open, being authentic, sharing our struggles and what we've been through, that's a part of the process here, you guys. That's a part of spiritual growth and development and healing and connecting with others and community. So that's just another reason why I am reading this post here with you today. All right, carrying on. I realize I could have written about this much earlier in my blog's lifetime, but for whatever reason, now is the time. And now is the time I share it with you. Perhaps it is the time that someone needs to read this. I was thinking of topics to write about for my next blog post. The previous 3 posts were all coronavirus related. Mind you, I did write this in 2020, which is fine and great. Very appropriate for what's happening in the world right now, but I honestly had nothing left to say about that topic, at least for right now. As I brainstormed what to write next, I didn't want to write something totally insensitive to what was happening in the current condition of the world, but I also didn't want to continue writing about the same topic either. So I decided that now would be the right time to take a page out of my own bedbug story because, pandemic or not, someone may be going through it. I can't even imagine going through this like on top of like the pandemic when it was at its peak. Yikes. Okay, on to the actual story. That was all kind of like the preface stuff, right? June 1st, 2016 was the day. After making my bed that morning, I saw a small little apple seed. Look, a small little apple seed like looking creature that was crawling across my comforter. I had never seen a bedbug before. I didn't know anything about them, but I found it odd to see a bedbug of any kind on my bed. It's not like this was a fly that flew in through a window or a spider that came in through a crack. It didn't leave me feeling good though. So I went to my source, Google, and sure enough, Google described it as a bedbug. A sinking feeling grew in the pit of my stomach. So I called my former slumlord, we're not acknowledging him as a landlord, he was a slumlord, to tell him what I had found. He was in disbelief that I came across a bedbug, but agreed to send the exterminator over to inspect the situation. The exterminator came over and confirmed that yes, indeed, it was a bedbug, and sure enough, he uncovered an infestation happening right behind my bed. The next 72 hours were brutal, something I had never been through before. Exterminating bedbugs is not as simple as coming in with a little spray and out. It's extensive, expensive, exhausting, and time consuming. June of 2016 also just so happened to mark my 10-year anniversary of living in LA. Great timing, right? 9 of those 10 years I had spent in that apartment that was about to get torn up inside and out because of bedbugs. I couldn't believe that this was how I was celebrating my 10-year anniversary in LA. It was a studio apartment, so I literally had to empty out the entire apartment, with the exception of the kitchen and the bathroom. Bedbugs love comfy and cozy bedding, couches, chairs, clothes, towels, blankets, pillows, stuffed animals, etc. Additionally, they prefer wood and paper items as opposed to metal and plastics, which means everything had to be cleaned, cleared out, or thrown away. I literally had to move everything out in 72 hours before they came in to do their treatment of the apartment. Here's a rundown of what I did. And like I said, this is extensive. I was not sleeping basically or eating for like 72 hours. Number 1, I threw away anything that was not necessary or important to me anymore. A lot of garbage bags went out into the dumpster. Number 2, I began mission laundry on crack. This meant taking every article of clothing, bedding, towels, etc. that I own, spending days way beyond that 72 hours in the laundromat doing laundry in hot water and the highest level of heat possible to dry everything. Heat is a big way to kill bed bugs and their eggs. So things must be washed and dried thoroughly in very hot temperatures. Hotels frequently use heat treatments for bed bugs since they are more susceptible to them due to travelers. Stuffed animals and even shoes were thrown into dryers at the laundromat to make sure that everything was clean. Tragically, I lost a pair of Skechers from doing this. They actually shrunk. Oh well, I replaced them. Number 3, I brought sensitive items to the dry cleaners. For items that were very delicate, expensive, I took those to the dry cleaners. These were the things that had sequins, designer handbags, and I could not possibly clean them myself. I was honestly with I was honest with them and I told them that I had bed bugs. So they did have a very special treatment to treat the items. And this way, they could keep my items isolated from the other clients' belongings. Number 4, I bought a million plastic storage bins from Target. Oh gosh, the West Hollywood Target, I was there a lot. I was there a lot in this time period. Okay, maybe not a million, but a lot of them. For items I could not take to the dry cleaner, laundromat, or part with and tossing in the trash, those things had to be quarantined basically. Kind of like the pandemic, right? The quarantine thing. This was for items like books, photo albums, DVDs, decorations, both holidays and otherwise, picture frames, little trinkets and figurines, etc. Number 5, I opened up a storage unit at Public Storage and put all of those items in the giant plastic bins away safely for an extended period of time. Little known ugly fact: bed bugs can live up to 18 months without feeding, which means anything that you can't treat or you don't throw away needs to be locked away in storage untouched for 18 months. And that's exactly what I did with those items. They were tucked away in the bins where they were sealed up with Gorilla Tape because the containers must be airtight in order for it to work. Number 6, I bought vacuum sealed bags from Bed Bath and Beyond. Is Bed Bath and Beyond even a thing anymore? Are they even still open? I don't know. I haven't seen them in a while. Anyways, I bought those to store my entire wardrobe, bedding, towels, etc. after they were cleaned at the laundromat, and I had to also place those things in storage. My new home, in essence, was Public Storage because everything was there. I would have to make frequent trips there just to change clothes. Number 7, rubbing alcohol on everything. Rubbing alcohol also helps rid bed bugs. Probably also a terrible fire hazard, but I bought bottles of the stuff and put it into spray bottles, and I found myself spraying walls if I even saw a bed bug remotely move. I sprayed and cleaned every CD and DVD I own, which is a lot. I don't even remember everything I sprayed with rubbing alcohol, but it was a ton of things, I'm sure, and I got a good contact high from that stuff. It was terrible. Number 8, at that time that this happened, I had 3 parakeets. Now I have 2 chihuahuas, and thankfully, neither one of them were with me at this time. Not that I don't love them and I wouldn't want them to be with me, but it was enough going through this with 3 parakeets, let alone throwing in a couple of dogs into the mix as well. Um, which I go on to mention, I have a dog now. Thankfully, my dog didn't come into my life until after this mess, But birds are extremely sensitive and cannot be around extermination fumes. I read nightmare stories about how other people's birds would die after bringing them home after an extermination. I took my birds to be boarded at the vet. I didn't know how long they would stay there. They wound up being boarded for a full 2 months. More to come on that as to why, which goes way far beyond a simple extermination. Number 9, I went down the rabbit hole of bedbugger.com. While writing this blog post, I attempted to revisit the website today and sadly to be greeted by a message that their website is under maintenance. I don't know if it still is. Once again, I wrote this in 2020, so I have not looked at their website in a very long time. No clue. Um, anyways, it said to check back by February 19th of 2020, which it's far beyond. So it looks like 2020 has gotten to bedbugger as well. This made me sad because I found so much useful and good information on this website, and particularly through its forum when I went through my own hell of it. There was so much I didn't know that I learned from there, and it's very important to know your enemy well so you can defeat it. Since Bedbugger may not be available today, I hope my story helps aid at least someone else. I'm sure there must be some useful information somewhere out there on the internet. And finally, number 10, I prayed, cried, screamed, and did everything but sleep. Considering I did majority of this within 72 hours, virtually cleaning and moving everything out in my studio apartment, I slept an average of 1 to 2 hours each night. And this was my new existence that I had been completely taken over by in my life. Perhaps you ask, how did I not notice that bed bugs were there earlier than seeing one crawl onto my bed? Good question. Despite having a full-blown infestation, I did not itch and I did not have a single bite mark on me. That's not to say I wasn't getting bit, because I'm sure I was. However, bite marks only appear on you if you're allergic to them. I am not. So I went a long time without even knowing that they were there. In fact, the way the bed bugs know you are there is they sense when you exhale. This is creepy. It's awful. It's awful that they know this. They pick up on the carbon dioxide that you exhale, which is what attracts them to you. The CO2 is like an aroma to them that their food is ready. In essence, the only way they won't know that you're there is if you stop breathing. As I moved my entire life out of my apartment that weekend, my neighbors approached me. They asked me if I was moving out, and I was honest with them because they live there too. I felt that they deserved to know so they could be aware and prepare themselves. I told them that I had bed bugs. What surprised me was their lack of surprise. I came to discover that at least 2 other tenants in the building had battled bed bugs in the building within the past 5 years. Additionally, when each of them contacted the slumlord to take care of the problem, the slumlord ignored it and did not have their apartments treated at all. They were left to fend for themselves, which was why these critters were still making the rounds in the building, and I was apparently up next on the chopping block. Extermination day arrived, and I had thoroughly done my part. The bug man came in and sprayed down the apartment. Considering it was a studio apartment, I literally had nowhere to sleep because of this. My bed was completely thrown out, minus the bed frame and headboard. I slept in my car and parked in the carport. Considering the exhaustion I had, it didn't matter. I slept for 10 hours in my 2007 blue Volkswagen Beetle convertible that night, and it was honestly one of the best sleeps I ever had in my life. This is true. That's what happens when you're that exhausted. My mom was not thrilled with me sleeping in my car, so the next night she put me up in a Hilton the night so I could get real proper sleep in a safe place. Sleeping in the Hilton unfolded for me a new normal of now how I stay in hotels. Since hotels and motels can be a way to bring home bed bugs, I have a whole process now whenever I check into a room, and it's not pretty. All of my luggage stays in the bathroom the entire time because bed bugs do not like spaces like the bathroom, preferably putting my suitcase in the bathtub. I take out my flashlight on my phone and literally inspect every nook, cranny, and crevice of every comfy chair, couch, and bed, sheets, pillowcases, mattresses, etc. I know what to look for, and I don't rest until I know it's clean. In 2018, when I did a cross country road trip, this is what I did at every stop. Thankfully, I've never encountered it as a problem, but I can not consciously relax without tearing it up first. This is how I know I suffer from bedbug PTSD. More to come on that soon as well. When I was able to return to my apartment, I brought an air mattress to sleep on. The birds remained at the vet to ensure that their health and safety was away from any toxins. And for bed bugs, you need to go through several treatments because their eggs and their babies are hatched between treatments. By now, my slumlord was bugging me to tell me I had to pay for everything, which I stood my ground refusing to do, considering I merely rented and they were the owners. Therefore, they're responsible, especially considering they never took care of the other tenants before me. After the final treatment, the slumlord offered to have the carpet ripped up in my unit and replaced with wood laminate flooring that they claimed they would pay for to provide. Bedbugs love carpet, and I would much rather have them not live there. So I agreed to help help prevent further infestation. The handyman, the only decent person working for this management, came in and did his job. He took up all of the carpeting and then just left. And like that, in its place was dirty, cracked cement with glue on the floor, and it was at least 20 years old. The dirt was so bad that it was taking up the entire air. It lingered. It circled. The air was thick and you could literally just not breathe it. No amount of circulation would clear it up. Conveniently, the slumlord decided to go on vacation at this time and completely abandon the idea of putting down wood laminate floor as promised. This was the point where I officially became homeless. I couldn't stay in an apartment anymore because it was unlivable. It had no floor and the air quality was unbreathable. I consulted a lawyer. Unfortunately, there wasn't much that I could do without involving the neighbors and everyone getting on board to form a lawsuit together against him. However, I I was able to get some valuable legal counsel to know what direction to go in. Even though I could not live in that apartment, I was advised to continue paying rent anyways. It was better for me to look like the flawless, perfect tenant should anything go to court. That way, the judge finds me to be blameless and the trail of my slumlord's mistakes. So here I was paying rent on an apartment that I could not live in for the foreseeable future, with not having anywhere to live, therefore making me homeless because who can afford two rents? I thought I couldn't get any lower when I was cleaning out my apartment for an hour of sleep each night. I was wrong. This was the low point. My mind, my emotions had sunk lower than they had ever been before. My body was exhausted. I was done. Late one night, I sat in my car at Atwater Village. That's an area, a neighborhood in LA, by the way, not far from my broken apartment that had been mutilated by bedbugs. I was not alone, thankfully. My best friend at the time, who had been through this experience with me, sat next to me in the car. I was in hysterics. I had reached a point where I was serious. I was ready to get out of the car, walk through traffic, and never come back. I was done. I didn't want to live anymore. I was homeless, I was suicidal, and I was ready to die. I couldn't see what was worth fighting for. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't know how I had gotten into this situation. Every safety and comfort I had known was stripped away from me. I felt completely abandoned by God. He had my best friend not laid her entire body across me, restraining me, I probably would not be here today. She saved my life that night, and I am forever thankful to her and her friendship and her support that night and through this entire ordeal. So yeah, I told you guys, really intense. Not a fun time in my life. Um Thanks to a church Facebook group, I found someone that I could stay with in the interim who had a spare room. A single mom with the cutest, sweetest little girl. And for the next month, I stayed at her place in Westminster, which is near LAX. It was a haul between there and where I worked up in Hollywood, near my bedbug home, but I was grateful for the place to rest. She knew my situation, so she didn't ask rent of me as she rented out the room under normal circumstances. She knew my rent money was already going towards my broken apartment. My mom had a heart for this giving single mom, though, and paid for my stay in her room during that time. So it worked out well for everyone. I fought hard during my stay there to get back home. I was on the phone regularly with the health and housing departments because it was up to them at this point to crack down on my slumlord and force their hand to fix my apartment, or they'd get massive fines. Of course, my slumlord tried to force me to pay for the new floor that they promised that they would replace themselves, which I did not do. My friends were another way that I survived this ordeal. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of love, support, encouragement, and prayers I received from so many people during this time. Here I was, afraid no one would even want to be near me, in fear that they would get a bed bug from me. But all they did was love up on me. Returning to church helped a lot during this time. I hate rough times, we all do, but I also grew much closer to God during that time, a type of closeness that could not be achieved during a season of blessing. Mental, spiritual, and emotional sanity is so important when you're going through a traumatic event like this. I will never be the same after going through this experience. In some ways, for the better, in other ways, for the worse. In good ways, I am stronger than what I was before, closer to God, and coming out of this experience, my life definitely got an upgrade. More to come on that soon. In bad ways, I will never be able to stay at a hotel the same way again. I still sleep in my perfectly clean bed in a better new apartment with diatomaceous earth, a powder that cuts deep into crawling bugs' bodies when they go through it, surrounding my bedroom floor as if I'm doing a seance. My bed is pulled away from the wall, and I have massive anxiety and PTSD when it comes connected to bed bugs. I've gone to therapy for this. It was the housing department that eventually broke my former slumlord and cracked down on them hard enough to convince them to give me a floor, a real livable floor. My slumlord was so upset for me with doing that, but they left me no choice. They weren't doing their job. After the wood laminate floor was officially laid down and installed, before I returned to my apartment, I had literally it literally had to be industrially cleaned. From the bedbug poison, the dirt, the cement floor being exposed for too long, the unit literally needed a lot more than a mere mopping. After hiring ServPro to come in and industrially clean things with a big air filter included purifying the air, myself and my birds were finally able to move back home in mid August of 2016. By the last week of August, I had gotten a much needed break and a week of fun that I was able to forget about the bedbug apartment troubles for a little while. My all time favorite group, 98 Degrees, was in town to do a show at the Microsoft Theater in LA. And then they had one up in Saratoga, California at the Mountain Winery, and I had tickets for each to go to and had purchased long before the bedbug hell had broken loose. My bestie and I enjoyed a much needed break at the show in LA, and the following day we headed up to the Bay Area where she had family friends and we stayed with them. We enjoyed a coastal drive up the one going through Big Sur and had a fun several days in San Francisco, San Jose, and other areas around the Bay Area because we desperately needed the vacation to escape for a while. A few days later was the Saratoga show, and not much longer after that, we descended back down to LA. 98 Degrees has always been a big part of my life since 1999, but oh man, that year they were a part of my many lifesavers I needed during a very dark time of struggle. They were a light in it, just like they've always been. While in the Bay Area, I received a phone call from the housing department. They had uncovered yet another bombshell, but this was outside of the bedbugs and the floor. They unraveled the fact that my apartment was actually an illegal unit. Oh, it just gets crazier. In the words of Chandler Bing, can open, worms everywhere. Sadly, it actually didn't surprise me. Apparently, all your all of your utilities being included in your rent is a red flag when your unit is illegal, which is what I had. And apparently, there are a lot of those in LA. I thought it was a good deal, though, unaware of what it meant. To be clear, there's nothing physically wrong with the unit to make it illegal. I had my own entrance, a fully operating bathroom and kitchen, etc. Apparently, they took a two-bedroom apartment and split it. One became my unit, a studio apartment, and the other became a one-bedroom unit. The illegal part is that they never officially registered it and did the paperwork behind it. Because of this, it meant I could not live there anymore. I wasn't planning on staying there anyway due to the bedbug problem, but this was the nail in the coffin. I also had to move before it turned into a legal eviction because they could legally evict you in a situation like that, even though it's not your fault. I did not need that on my record for something that I was not at fault for. But it was now September at that time, and my bestie and I were on the search for an apartment to be roomies and hopefully find something really good quickly. Rather than use websites like apartments.com, we researched Yelp reviews because it was really important that wherever we moved that the management company actually cared and took care of their tenants. But we were also nervous with neither of us having stellar credit histories. The ball of nerves turned into fear. I'd be homeless once again, but this time long term in the race against the clock to find a decent place before someone could approve us. Eventually, we set our sights on this place that was an absolute that had absolute glowing reviews of this property manager named Pam, who apparently took really good care of the building and held everything together. My best friend persistently reached out to Pam, and we checked out one of the available apartments in lovely Las Villas. We knew that this was going to be our home. During the process of waiting to be approved, we didn't know how things would pan out. We still knew we had other options in mind, but despite the uncertainties and zero promises, we had that peace that surpasses all understanding. Not too much later, Pam contacted us to deliver the good news that we ourselves had an apartment, a real legal apartment. I was actually excited to be paying a utility bill, knowing that it was legal and on the up and up. It was a one-bedroom apartment, but it all worked out very well. I took the bedroom and my best friend took the living room. Since she had moved out, at this time, she had already moved out, I was the only one living there then, um, the entire apartment was mine at that time. But for the season that she was there, it worked out exactly as it needed to. October 1st was moving day. Exactly 4 months prior, all hell broke loose, and after being under tremendous amounts of pain and pressure, we were finally moving into a new chapter, shedding that old skin that was definitely worn out. I told my previous slumlord I was moving, and I told them literally at the last minute. I didn't care. I had a new home. Their unit was illegal anyways, and I would never deal with them ever again. I owed them nothing. So we settled into our new home in October. Pam has been an angel that helped bring me out of that nightmare of hell. She had an incredible sympathy of understanding of where I was coming from, and we were welcomed into a new community with many neighbors who truly love, support one another, and treat each other as family. And on that note, I'm going to interrupt my own reading to say something really quickly about Pam. And I might actually cry. I might cry when I mention this. Before I came on here today to share this story with you guys, I was on Facebook. And on Facebook, we have a Facebook group for that old apartment building. I don't live in that apartment building anymore. I don't even live in California anymore. I'm in Colorado now. But I'm still in that Facebook group for that building. And I saw someone post today that Pam had passed away. And that really broke my heart because she really was an angel to me during this period of time in my life. And it's been a long time since I've seen her. I left that building in 2021, but, it was really sad to hear, and especially with all the other apartment drama that I've been through, which I'm gonna get to in a little bit. Um, she was the glue of that building. She was the mom of that building. And now it's like, I feel like there's no safe apartment building in all of America now because if there was any safe building, it was the one that she managed. And I know that I'm sure there's still a beautiful community there and everything. I know a lot of other people have since moved out of that building since then as well. But if there was any apartment building anywhere that was a safe haven, it was that apartment building, and a lot of it was due to Pam. She was a superstar, and Pam, if you're listening, you're out there somewhere. We miss you, and I'm sure you're still gonna be leaving those passive aggressive notes on the elevator doors of heaven to whoever's messing around and doing things like leaving dog poop in the recycling bin. But yeah, I just had to interrupt myself with that quick story because I literally found out about that today. And I was like, oh, Pam, she was a really good person with a really good heart. Anyways, um, I'm gonna continue on with my story from bedbug hell. um, in the remaining months of 2016, I got a brand new bed for my birthday in early October. My first real bed of my own to sleep on in months. My best friend got a futon, so we had a bed couch situation in the living room. In November, I got my dog Shadow, who came into my life, which is an interesting story and could be a blog post all of its own. And I went home for Thanksgiving that year to help my mom with spinal surgery that she had. December was filled with holiday fun, traveling home once again for Christmas and New Year's. And finally, heading into 2017, there was peace once again in my world. As I said, though, there are some ways that I live now that I can never seem to live the same way again. At the time I wrote this, it says 4 years later, but now it's 10 years later. And I still have my bed pulled away from the wall. True, even right now, 10 years later. Diatomaceous earth surrounds the perimeter of my bedroom. I have outlet covers on every unused outlet because bed bugs can crawl in that way. And like I said, hotel stays are a bit more stressful than they used to be, despite me loving to travel. Honestly, I believe that the only way some of these habits will change is if I live in a house one day, not attached to any other people or sharing walls with others. The belongings I had in storage that remained there for 18 months, and as recommended in January of 2018 of after the holiday season of 2017, I began slowly but surely pulling things out of storage. I wanted to close the storage unit anyways. It was a lot of money to spend on storage for rent every single month. However, I like to be extra thorough and make sure that I didn't experience bed bugs even again. So I wanted to make sure nothing was alive coming out of storage. I went online and I purchased a pack tight heater. This is a special kind of heater that you can place items in at 120 degrees for several hours at a time. This will kill any bed bugs or eggs. Granted, my belongings were probably clean as they were sitting in isolation in airtight containers for 18 months, but I wasn't taking any chances. As every book, every photo album, every DVD, every Christmas ornament came out of storage, they all went through the pack tight before being set up in the apartment. It was quite literally the adventure because the pack tight helped heat the entire apartment for one. And secondly, it was like a walk down memory lane. I was seeing things that I had forgotten I had even had. I hadn't seen them in so long. By the time the storage unit was closed down and every last item had been through the pack tight and put away in its normal place in a new and better apartment, it was safe to declare that the war against bed bugs was officially over. One, and my life was finally back. Considering I now live in a better apartment, I don't live in the same apartment anymore, so I wouldn't say this one's better, but that's coming up. I don't have that written down, but that's the story from this week. Um, so it won't be as long, I promise. Um, where was I? um, yeah. Surrounded by so many loving and wonderful people, now with a loyal and loving dog by my side that wasn't there before, going to Disneyland all the time as a pass holder. That was when I was living in LA, obviously. I wish I was still going to Disneyland every day now, but that would be quite the hike here from Colorado. Um, taking cross country road trips, living my best life, gaining more business in a new location, experiencing so many blessings. My life by far was upgraded from where it began in 2016. You may be wondering, what happened with my former slumlord after this? Did I sue him? Did he get his? Well, I did attempt to take him to small claims court for the max amount allowed in California, which is $10,000. But unfortunately, it was a failed attempt. We never even made it to court. As the plaintiff, you're not allowed to serve the defendant papers on your own, so someone else has to do it. And no one was able to track down my slimy, slick former slumlord. He obviously is very good at evading and avoiding doing the right things. So he evaded the lawsuit very well. While that is a bummer, I can't allow that to control my life and have since moved on. I may never see or know, but I do know that Karma has his address. Karma knows where he lives. And honestly, I'm not the first tenant he screwed over, and I'm probably not the last. When the time is right, with the right situation, I do believe that justice will be served. It's not my responsibility to serve up that justice. 2016 unfolded the way it did for me because the foundation that I had been living on was unstable and was ready to crumble. So it did. Much like the tower card in tarot. It didn't just crumble though, it caved in and went down a black hole. I was being forced out of a situation that was no longer serving me. So I could be in a situation to move on to something bigger and better. I see what's happening on a large scale, big picture in the world right now. This was written in 2020, but honestly, this could still be applicable here and now today as well. And I see the same thing happening that happened to me happening all over the place. This is why I tell people to hold on, push through, have faith, and with everything that's happening right now. I believe a lot of systems that we had previously are collapsing, our healthcare systems, politically, and more, because they weren't built on solid foundations that work. So now we're watching them tumble and have no choice but to build something new, something better, and something that will be helpful for everyone. While I don't know the world's problems, how it will resolve and how quickly or easily, it's possible that things may even have to get worse now yet before it improves. I do believe that it will get better, but it won't be where we were before. Whether it's globally, collectively, as the world, or in our own personal lives, just remember that setbacks like 2016, 2020, or even here right now in 2026, we need to look at it like a slingshot. Just remember that we are being pulled back to be launched forward. Anyway, that is my long, drawn out saga of bed bugs. I know so much more about them than is normal, and I hope to never encounter another one again. It's a myth that bed bugs are only in places that are dirty and run down. They do not discriminate. They will show up if you're rich. They will show up if you're poor. They will show up if you're a clean freak. They will show up if you're a pig. The thing they like more than anything else is clutter, which anyone can create. It's easy for them to hide and be cozy in clutter. Pro tip: if you keep things under your bed, don't. Keep things organized and don't be a pack rat. If you're going through it right now, please know that you are not alone and that you will get through this. I completely understand the struggle. The key is to be very thorough with your cleaning process. The more precise you are, the less likely they will resurface. Do not be ashamed of the mental issues that come with them because these mental problems are very real, just as valid as a traumatic experience of anything else. If you've ever been through bed bugs, I hope that you can at least find some inspiration through my story and any other ongoing hard times in general, and hopefully have learned something new. If you have any questions on how to survive getting through bed bugs, please feel free to leave me a comment, whether it's here, on YouTube or, anywhere else like social media, the different podcast platforms, etc. Feel free. I would love to hear your story too. So please feel free to share that. But I am thankful for where I am today out of the situation. And always remember, if Brittany got through 2007 and if I got through 2016, we all can get through what we're going through right here and right now today in 2026 and beyond. And that is my bedbug story and the full bedbug post. And it's long, and I can't believe I just read it here on this whole podcast. That's pretty crazy. So thank you for hanging in there with me, you guys. I know that was long. Yeah, it was a nightmare situation for sure. Just checking in on the chat. Total nightmare. But obviously that's a background situation that I experienced 10 years ago. And the reason why I wanted to bring up that story today is it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's having a repeat performance because I do not have bed bugs. Thank God. No bed bugs here. None of them. However, there's like echoes, I guess you could say, echoes of those memories that have kind of been resurfacing for me lately since like March of this year. So, this portion of the story is going to be thankfully a little bit shorter because it's not a whole blog post. But in this present day situation, so obviously I live in Colorado now. I live in a different state completely different building, etc. This is one really interesting trend. I will say this much. When I first moved out on my own for the very, very first time ever in my entire life, like leaving my mom's house, leaving the house that I grew up in, that, I was raised in as a kid, as a teenager, so on and so forth. I left my house, my childhood house in 2006. That was 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, I moved to LA for the very first time. Fast forward 10 years ago, 2016, I went through that horrific bed bug experience I just mentioned. Now here we are, another 10 years later, and it is 2026, and now I'm in Colorado, and I've noticed this interesting trend. It's like every 10 years something weird happens, and it's kind of like a nudge from spirit, I feel like saying, "Hey Heather, it's time for your next housing chapter." I have been talking for years about getting a house. And not just because I wanna have a house, but obviously, I don't wanna, like, share walls with people and have those crazy experiences anymore, right? I'm partially doing that for my mental health. I wanna do that for my dogs, just better quality of life, right? And it doesn't need to be anything major or huge or anything like that. Just something small enough and, stable enough, not run down or whatever. Um but I've been talking about this for a really long time, and I feel like I'm officially moving into the season now of no longer living in apartments for the past 20 years and maybe actually starting to look for a house before I get run over again in transformation. Because where I currently live right now, since March, I have come across five, count them, five large American roaches in my apartment. So disgusting. Now, now I feel like I've been going on an educational trip with roach type bugs, not just bed bugs, because I didn't know this. There are two different types of roaches. So you have German roaches and you have American roaches. German roaches are the smaller ones that live indoors. They're the ones who cause like major infestations, the ones who can like impact your food and everything. Those are extremely hard to get rid of. Now, thankfully, I do not have the Germans. Germans are really hard to get rid of. The Americans, they're super large, so they're really ugly, they're really nasty, they're like 3 inches long, but they're the ones who typically live outside. They are natural to the outdoors. Sometimes people call them like palomino bugs. They're just like they're big. Or they're sometimes called water bugs too. They're really big, ugly, and nasty, and they typically live outside. Um, so typically when you see them come inside, it's usually not an infestation situation. It's usually there's like an entryway point. There's something that hasn't been properly sealed. So they're coming in and they usually come in through like the piping systems through your kitchen or your bathroom. And since March, there have been 5 of them. The first one that I had in March was on my living room wall, and it freaked me the hell out, and, I mean, thankfully, got rid of it, gone, whatever, great, wonderful. Then about a month later, we get into April, and it this is the worst possible this was traumatizing in itself. I was literally it was like 6:30 in the morning, it was early in the morning. I had an event that I was getting ready for. I had an event that I was gonna do, because I do, many different events doing readings and everything at, like, Body, Mind, Spirit and stuff like that. So I was getting ready for one of those events that morning. It was 6:30 in the morning. The two most vulnerable positions you could be in is either in the shower or on the toilet. I was literally on the toilet, and this roach comes into the bathroom, and it's, like, making a beeline straight for me on the toilet, and I'm, like, screaming, I'm freaking out. I literally have a Swiffer sitting next to my toilet now just so I can, like, hit something if it comes in there. Totally traumatizing. Like I said, most vulnerable moment ever. That was number 2. So, I've been back and forth in communication with the property management here. Now, granted, these people are not as bad as the people that I was dealing with in LA. Ironically, the company, the big corporate company that owns this apartment complex, ironically, they are in California, so I feel like I can't escape it no matter what I do. Um, but anyways, so I realized that the people who are in the leasing office, the property manager and everything, they're kind of like the in-between person because they don't actually own the property. They're just doing whatever it is that they can do. So the communication, it hasn't exactly been the best. It hasn't been the greatest, but obviously I've been through worse. Um, so it was like maybe a couple of weeks ago, they sent in the exterminator, and thankfully the preparation for American roaches, it is nothing as extensive as bed bugs. All I had to do was like clear out the kitchen and bathroom sinks, just like take the things out of there basically so he could spray underneath there. And he laid down some traps to trap them. So, great, fine, wonderful. So that was like a couple weeks ago. And then um at the end of last week, there was a trap that's like right in the crevice between my refrigerator and my counter. And so that one particular trap I have easy access to visually to catch it. So I open the refrigerator, close the refrigerator, whatever it is, doing whatever I need to do. And one of the times I'm at the fridge, I just so happened to look down at the trap and I saw there was something in there. That was number 3. Now, thankfully, 3, 4, and 5 were all dead and all in traps. And that got me thinking about the trap literally behind the toilet. He put one behind the toilet based on the fact that the thing was coming at me on the toilet. So there's a trap behind the toilet, and I was like, I'm gonna go check the trap behind the toilet. There were two of them dead in the trap behind the toilet. So that brings it to a total of 5. Now, the exterminator is supposed to come back literally tomorrow to treat things again, remove the occupied traps, put down fresh new traps. But I am exhausted from this, you guys. And even though it is not as bad, it is not as traumatic as the bed bug situations, it's that residual, it's that PTSD. It brings back flashbacks and memories, and it brings up a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression for me. For the past few days, I have been experiencing functional freeze, which if you don't know what functional freeze is, it's basically like when your nervous system is overloaded and it can't handle what's going on, you just shut down. You shut down. A lot of people will interpret it as, oh, you're just being lazy, but it's not that you're being lazy, it's just you literally are frozen. It's like you're emotionally and mentally frozen and it stops you from doing anything. And that's what I've been dealing with for the past few days because I've just my nervous system has kind of like gone back to 2016 mode, having those flashbacks and those memories basically. Um, so it's been extremely stressful, and that's kind of what I've been dealing with um, for this past week. So it's been a lot. It's been very overwhelming. There's also some astrology I could technically get into here when it comes to like the housing situation and security and that kind of stuff, but I think I might actually save that for another time just because I've been on here for a while talking about this as it is already, and that could also be part of a good astrology lesson to maybe help you guys if you want to learn a little bit more about astrology and like how certain planets may impact things like Pluto or Saturn, because those planets can be the more challenging and the more difficult type of transits to experience. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna put a pin on it in the astrology sense. We'll save that for another time. But there's definitely been pattern recognition. Like I said, 2006, 2016, now it's 2026. And I'm paying attention this time. I'm noticing the pattern. And that's why I'm like, it's time for a house. I'm not saying houses don't come with problems and don't come with their own issues, but I am done with this apartment nonsense. And the maintenance people who do all the maintenance on these buildings here, even they have said when it comes to the American roaches, "Oh yeah, they just live in the walls. They live in the walls. They just live in the walls. Like it's nothing." But the thing is, I've lived in this particular apartment for the past 3 years now, and I've never really had this problem up until now. Um, so, basically, like I said, it's not an infestation. What it is there's probably an area somewhere where there's an entryway that needs to be sealed, so they're kind of treating, like, my apartment, like the roaches, they're treating my apartment like the interstate. It's a travel route for them, is what it comes down to. Um, so there's probably an entry point not on my level because below me is like a garden level unit. So there's probably an entry point down there at like a ground level because that's where they're coming up from. And then there's probably an entry point somewhere in my apartment that I don't know. But it makes sense because 2 years ago, they literally ripped up all the plumbing in this apartment because they wanted to, like, do something dealing with the pipes. It was like they wanted to put in new pipes or something. So it wouldn't surprise me if something wasn't necessarily sealed properly from that situation. And even if something has had an entryway point for a while, that doesn't mean that they're gonna find you and they're gonna come into your apartment right away. that chances are they probably were pushed out of wherever they were before, and now they're just traveling through here. So that's kind of been my recent experience. Now, what does all of this have to do with Mother's Day? Because that's kind of the next thing I'm going to get into. What does all this have to do with Mother's Day and nurturing ourselves and caring for ourselves? Because, like I said, the whole message for today is when home doesn't feel safe, mothering ourselves through the mess. And that's the thing. It's like literally when I went through bed bugs 10 years ago, when I'm seeing those roaches in here right now, the dead ones or whatever, within the past couple of months, my home has not felt safe. It has not felt like my safe haven. I've not felt comfortable. I also work from home. Like, clearly, I have this whole microphone set up and everything, and I may only go live here on YouTube once a week and publish this podcast everywhere else on Fridays. But there's a lot of other things that I do around here the rest of the week, and it's hard to get work done. It's hard to rest when I'm not working, knowing that that's going on. My safety feels compromised. I don't feel comfortable, and no one should feel that way. Everyone deserves the right to feel safe and secure and cozy and comfy in their own home. So when we go through experiences like that, there is a level of self-soothing that comes in. There's a level of needing to nurture and take care of ourselves because no one else is necessarily going to do it. My mom, she's been a big support to me, but she also lives 1,000 miles away. So there's only so much that she can do as a mom from a distance. Um, so yeah, so I wrote down a couple of notes here kind of from that Mother's Day perspective. And here's the bridge that I want to make for you guys. Because this episode is airing right before Mother's Day, I keep thinking about the idea of mothering from a wider sense. Not just who has children and not just who gets celebrated and not just like the traditional version of the holiday, but the part of us that longs to be held, protected, nurtured, and safe. Because when your home doesn't feel safe, it can bring up such a primal feeling. It is not just an inconvenience, it is not just stress. It's the deeper inner child saying, where do I need to feel protected? That is so incredibly important. Um, and then interestingly, I do I do have one more little story to read, but it's much shorter than the bedbug one, and it's not even about bugs because we're kind of moving into the mother thing too. So, while I've been dealing with all this cuckoo-ness around here with the bug thing, um, earlier this week, a couple of days ago, I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw a friend of mine share a very disturbing and toxic post. Not one that she wrote herself. She was sharing a post that somebody else had written, but she was sharing it in addition to her own commentary because she was just as disturbed by this post as I was. Um, she was very hurt by it and thought it was absolutely sick and disgusting, which I would have to agree upon. I am not going to reread the toxic post. I'll just give you guys a brief understanding of what was said in it. There is a mommy influencer on Facebook, and I don't even know who this person is. I've never heard of this person until I saw this post. And she basically went on this huge tangent about how Mother's Day is only for people who birth and raise humans. So basically, if you're a dog mom, a cat mom, a plant mom, whatever, you're an aunt, whatever you are, you're a grandma, it doesn't matter. Doesn't count. Doesn't count. It's just for people who birth out humans, apparently. And um My friend who had shared this post, she was very upset about it because she's gone through 6 miscarriages. So she was very much so offended by that. I was offended by it as well, and you add seeing something that toxic sludge on Facebook, which there's a lot of toxic sludge on Facebook, period. Not just that, but period. There's a lot of that happening there. Um, yeah, you add seeing that on top of feeling not safe in my own home, and it just made me even more upset. But this post bothered me so much. I usually don't respond to stuff like this, but I was like, I'm going to respond to this girl's post. And she may never read it. Even if she does, she may not care. But maybe it's gonna help somebody else who reads through the comments if they see it. So I wanna read to you guys really quick what it was that I wrote in response to this toxic tangent about only mothers, respect mothers, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna read to you what I said because it definitely deeply impacted me. This is going to be long, not in comparison to the bedbug thing, I promise. Um, but in comparison to comments on Facebook, it was long. But I hope you read it with an open mind and heart. I hope you read it with the intention to listen and not the intention to respond. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a mom. I would play with my dolls, and they were my babies. The desire never faded or went away, even in times of change, uncertainty, and adversity. As I grew up, one of the reasons I wanted to be a mom so badly was because I wanted a big family. I'm an only child. I used to beg my parents for a younger sibling, but that never happened. My grandfather on my dad's side had already passed prior to me being born. My grandmother on my dad's side died when I was 5. My only aunt, my dad's sister, died when she was 16 years old in a car accident long before I was born. My dad was only 8 years old when this happened. So there are no cousins or any other relatives on that side. When I was 13 years old, my dad passed from cancer. The week he passed actually began with my grandma dying, my mom's mom, and a year later, my grandfather on my mom's side passed. Since the age of 14, it has literally just been me and my mom. She does have one brother. He was estranged from the family since before I was born. At the age of 32, it took me reaching out to him because I desperately wanted family in my life. He never had children, so again, no cousins on that side either. He's on his 4th marriage and has dementia now, so he doesn't even know who I am anymore, unless my mom or his wife reminds him. One day, when my uncle and my mom are gone, it will be just me, and I will be the equivalent of an adult orphan. This was never the way I dreamed my life would turn out. I dreamed of falling in love, having a large family, and a beautiful life. Instead, I have a lot of grief. The larger someone loves, the deeper the grief is, as grief is love with nowhere to go. I never met a person who wanted to have a family with me. So, my 2 dogs that you're telling me to not celebrate on one specific day that I should celebrate on a different day are what keep me going. They are my literal lifeline. They are more stories. There are more stories out there like mine, even worse than mine. Other mothers, and yes, I'm calling them mothers, who deeply desired for children and never had them for whatever life circumstance, whether that be not meeting the right partner, a miscarriage, or whatnot. The fact that you were able to become and live that dream of motherhood is beautiful, and I celebrate that with you and for you. But please do not ask others to not celebrate because it looks different. No one is trying to diminish the hard work that you put into your journey of motherhood. Motherhood is more complicated than birthing and raising. There is so much to be thankful for in being blessed and having that journey, as I'm sure you know. So please be sensitive to those whose journey to motherhood may have never been met and instead is marred by grief. There are many other mothers out there without babies, ones who have the heart of a mother while never having been one. I notice that much of what you say is, oh, there's Pets Day or Adoptive Parents Day or whatever. And yes, that is true. I'm not saying that those days don't matter. In fact, Dog Mom's Day this year is May 9th. It's always the day before Mother's Day, and I'm sure it's chosen that way to celebrate moms of all kinds all Mother's Day weekend. That's the thing, though. As a general rule, society doesn't really hype up those lesser known holidays. Most people in general do not pay attention to those, which is why dog moms, cat moms, plant moms, etc., get lumped into Mother's Day. Everyone deserves to be celebrated and not unseen as those other holidays generally are. The biggest issue I have is why rain on someone else's parade when and how they celebrate? The world is challenging enough as it is with plenty of problems. Why make problems over literal celebrations? The world is heavy enough as it is. Let's all celebrate more. Keep things lighter. Why limit celebrating Mother's Day to why celebrate yeah, I've been reading so much here, you guys. Why limit celebrating mothers to only Mother's Day then? Celebrate every day and let others celebrate their personal journeys too, whether they birthed and raised a human, adopted and raised a human, or adopted and raised a dog, a cat, a plant, etc. You never know the battle someone else has endured behind the scenes, so let's be a little kinder and sensitive to those things. It's silly to put boundaries on celebrations and love. Instead, let's do it bigger, better, and more. And that was my response. And I don't know if it made an impact on that person at all. I hope it did. If not, I hope it made an impact to somebody in those Facebook comments. But that's true. And I felt that that was just like so silly and ridiculous because I always did want to become a mom. I personally feel that I am too old to probably become a mom. Though, though my period did literally just come last night. I guess there's still hope. But um but either way, at least where I'm at right now, I feel like I'm probably beyond that possibly happening than it happening. And I know I'm not the only one who has had that journey, and it really hurts when people are like that, when people are exclusionary and gatekeeping. There should be no gatekeeping or anything exclusionary when it comes to love. Love is limitless. There shouldn't be boundaries. It's all inclusive. It's not exclusive. This isn't like a club where there needs to be a bouncer or something like that. Like that's silliness. So that was my response to that person. And just the issues around nurturing and motherhood have definitely been on my mind a lot lately, reflecting back on my crazy bug journeys and everything else. And I'll probably in future episodes be getting now into like crazy housing journeys because like I said, I am going to start the official search. Like I've always browsed around Zillow, but I'm not going to be browsing around Zillow anymore. I'm going to like actually reach out to a mortgage broker who helps with people who are self-employed such as myself because my type of situation is a little bit different than people who have like W2s and things because I don't have W2s as I hit my microphone. So that journey will be coming as well as astrology, and there's definitely some crossover astrology and housing stuff that can kind of go in together, which may help you guys too. if you're thinking of like moving, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like buying a house or anything, but there's certain things to look out for. All future episodes, like I said, next week's is what I plan to do that I was going to do for this week, which is like an beginning astrology lesson, I guess you could say. So if you want to know more about that, come back next week. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the things that I wanted to talk about and share here with you guys today, which I was not planning on sharing so much. And this was a lot. This was a lot for me, you guys, being very vulnerable and open about my own grief towards motherhood and that desire to become a mom and the small family that I have, as well as um, just being scared when you're dealing with unstable living conditions. And unstable living conditions can look like a lot of things. It doesn't have to be just because a creepy crawly bug walked into your home. It could be relational. There are people who may not necessarily live with the best of people that they live with. They could live with abusive partners or family members, things like that. There's all kinds of crazy situations out there, but yeah, I've really been reflective on that today, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. And if it helps you at all, I hope it does. I hope you're willing to share those stories with me, because this isn't a place for me to just talk at you guys, but it's also a place where I hope you guys feel comfortable sharing in return with me, um, in this community space. If you're here on YouTube, on the chat, if you're listening on the podcast platforms, come Friday, share with me on Spotify. Find me on my other social media and share with me your own experiences and everything, because this is meant to be a community. And that's what I really hope for it to be. I'm going to check in here on the chat really, really quick. Yes, Sabrina, I do remember you. Hello, hello. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out. I do. Um, I feel like I need to check the chat more often when it goes off. But usually I'm on a tangent, or I'm talking about some astrological transit, or pulling a card or something like that. Um, anyways, two questions that I want to leave you guys with as we kind of wind things down and wrap things up here, because I am going to head off soon. I'm going to be doing a virtual music workshop later tonight. Actually, it's not something that I'm doing. That I'm not the one hosting it. I'm just going to be attending it, like one of the attendees there. But my friend Jen, who is also one of my readers on my website, shadowandshine.com. She's an amazing astrologer, and she also has a background in the music industry, just like I do. And she is actually doing a branding workshop tonight for artists and people in the music industry, especially if you're just beginning, if you're just new to the whole thing. She's going to be hosting something tonight virtually. You can find out about that at geminibaby.com. It's not too late. You can still register, but I'm going to be over at it tonight, hanging out and seeing what she has to say and learning a little bit from her. So if you want to learn too, come on over and join the fun. It's going to be a good time. That's at 7 p.m. Mountain Time tonight. So by then, it's like 9 o'clock Eastern, in case you are interested. But anyways, yeah, that's later tonight. Like I said, I want to wrap things up here with two questions here for you guys. And you can answer this in the chat if you want. You don't have to, though. These are more like reflective kind of questions. You may want to sit and kind of chew on these for a little while. You may want to spend some time in meditation on these. These could be some good journaling prompts. If you have tarot or oracle cards of your own at home, you may want to like pull some cards for yourself to get some insight with these two questions. But these are the two questions I really want to leave you guys with as we wrap things up here today, and as we head into Mother's Day weekend, thinking about those nurturing qualities and those desires for safety and security that we need to find from ourselves sometimes. Question number 1: what does your inner child need to feel safe, supported, and nurtured right now? And that's going to look different for everybody, you know? So that's going to be getting in touch with that inner child. Does your inner child need a hug? You know, is it like a physical touch kind of thing? Do you need a hug? Does your inner child need to express itself and talk? Does it need to talk to somebody? You know, just share those emotions with somebody. Does your inner child need to get outside, go touch some grass? You know, which is funny because now the sun is coming out and it was snowing all day yesterday. And there was snow this morning, like, heavily weighing down the fresh green leaves on the trees out there, and now it's like the snow's completely melted, you know? Welcome to Colorado, that's all I can say. Um, but yeah, what does your inner child need? What does your inner child need to feel safe and secure? So that's question number 1. Question number 2: how can we mother ourselves through unsafe and uncertain seasons? Because it's not just about where you live. It doesn't just have to be your home that doesn't feel safe, but sometimes we can feel unsafe in certain connections, relationships, friendships. We can feel safe or we want to feel safe financially, but we have times where we might feel unsafe financially, where it's like, oh, you know, like, how am I going to pay this bill? It's due in like 3 days and I don't have enough money in the account to cover it. So, you know, there's things like that too. Financial safety, safety when it comes to work and, you know, coworkers, customers, if you deal with customers or anything like that, the people that you interact with. So, like I said, that could apply in any area of life, whether it's work, your personal life, where you live, your finances, your connections, your relationships, your community, wherever that applies. Um, yeah, how can we nurture ourselves? How can we help ourselves and soothe ourselves through those times of uncertainty where we feel that things are not safe? So, those are just 2 questions to kind of reflect on, maybe coming up over this weekend, over Mother's Day, over the course of the next week. If you feel comfortable sharing with me some of your thoughts and some of your reflections on that, I would love to hear it. Like I said, this is a community space, so all of those expressions are deeply welcomed anytime. Um, but yeah, those are just a couple of things to think on. And otherwise, yeah, that is what I have for you guys today. So I've been talking for the past 2 hours straight, and I don't even know how I just did it. But next week, you guys, I will be back with a beginning astrology lesson for you guys. So we're going to be talking some astrology. Hopefully nothing too crazy happens in my life where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I just thought of this big topic now to talk about." Cuz my own life is going crazy. Hopefully it's more calm. That's the energy and feelers I'm putting out for next week. I'm putting that out there for you too. So you guys have an amazing upcoming week as well, where you are thriving. You're not just surviving, that you're doing amazing and awesome and experiencing beautiful blessings and abundance all week. That's the kind of energy that I'm sending out for you guys. Um, Anyways, yeah. So astrology next week. This episode is going to be live everywhere on all your streaming platforms on Friday. Otherwise, I will be back here with you guys on YouTube. Same bat time, same bat channel, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or daylight time, I guess is what we're in now. Um, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, because that's where I am at. It will be another bonus episode next week because Kelsey is still on vacation. We don't go back until season 2, until June. So stay tuned. Kelsey will be back in June. But if you're interested in astrology, come back next week. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for hanging out here with me today for a little bit. Make sure, especially on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, all those good things. Hit the notification bell so you know the next time I am live, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you for hanging out with me, and keep sparkling, my friends, and happy Mother's Day as well. Mwah! See you guys next week.